Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann, and let's talk about this whole FBI raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago country club. Shall we? Because this is some banana crackers level silly shit we're living through right here. I just can't believe that a former president thought that he could just act as however he wanted without having to obey the typical protocols of sensitive documentation, retention, and storage. If you've been living under a rock, then you wouldn't know that 2.5 weeks ago, the FBI came in and they raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago country club. And they came in and seized several boxes of sensitive and possibly classified documents. Some of them have been called too sensitive to even report their contents, apparently, but they're being reported as considered the highest level of classification, which is not good to have laying around in a place with hundreds and thousands of people coming through. And I imagine it was like a number of television show raids of a similar nature where the Donald is seeing what's going on, but he's also hiding somewhere trying to pretend he isn't home, and they knock on his office door. And he's just like, I'm not here. Go away. You can't get me. Nana boo boo. Ha ha. Donald isn't home. And they're like, come on, Mr. Trump. We know you're right there. We actually are looking at you through the window. He's like, oh no, they see me. Or like he's peeking from behind the curtains at them as they're walking up in their uniforms with all their official gear, and he's like, oh shit, I better call Eric and Donnie Jr. and Melania, and we should get in a helicopter and fly away, because they'll never catch us if we're in the sky. It's just, he wasn't home when they started this shit, and then he came walking in the middle of it, and saw it playing out, and the boxes being carried out of his office, and lost his mind about it. And all of his buddies and cronies alike are collectively losing their minds over it, because they demand that the warrant for the act be open for public consumption. Attorney General Merrick Garland specifically did so. And then they did. And it totally fucking happened, showing that the efforts have been made since June to regain control of the documents by the government, but Trump basically ignored the request. And this isn't a surprise by any measure, seeing as the guy's a fucking egomaniac that thinks he can do whatever, whenever. However, a number of his former friends, or compatriots, allies, constituents, whatever word you want to use, his butt buddies, have been oddly silent since this document was unsealed, because it's like they're trying to distance themselves from the former president, knowing that midterms are coming up and they don't want to be linked to this shit. And people like the Freedom Caucus of conservative Republican members of the House of Reps, for fuck's sakes, that is run by Jim Jones, who's a piece of shit, who retweets things about 10-year-olds needing abortions, and just fuck that guy so hard. He's one of them that's kind of just not saying shit. And other GOP uber twats like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren gun-toting in my Christmas card with my family and children Boebert, Matt Gaetz, all that going dark info of them not saying shit. Of course, brought to you by the Washington Post political investigative reporter Josh Dawsey. So there's my bibliography there. There's who's my source on that one. And some people are saying that it wasn't a criminal act or violation of the Espionage Act, as been what's been brought up for those documents for the former president to have them in his possession. And the reason behind this is that the former administration official Kash Patel has said documents stored at Mar-a-Lago marked as classified had in fact been declassified by President Donald Trump as he left office in January of 2021. And people are saying, if he did this, there'd be proof, and they're not finding proof. And documents of this nature are usually fairly well protected and turned into the National Archives for safekeeping after a presidency ends, by the way. But Trump was so busy losing his mind over the election loss that he was told, hey, have everybody pack their shit up and then hand over whatever to the archives office reps. And others that were in the office have said that nothing was being moved. He wasn't packing up. He was just focused on all this stop the steal nonsense and not wanting to have the results of the election taken seriously. Like he could somehow, come up with a scheme to still be the winner. Unfortunately, after that, in the last few days, he took the documents home with him to Florida and then stored them in a glorified janitor's closet that is right by the fucking pool. Oh my God, that's where they found some of this shit. In a storage closet right off the pool. And then Giuliani is saying it's more secure at Mar-a-Lago than in a number of other facilities or a safe, which is bullshit because Rudy Giuliani has gone from being one of the most respected mayors in big city American history to being a fucking kook that bleeds hair dye on camera when he's sweating over getting caught lying. So just think about, you go for a swim, you're like, oh, we need some more towels. And then you just open up a door that a janitor didn't lock, and you find a bunch of classified level paperwork, some of which may contain nuclear secrets or binders of info on other world leaders, and Roger Stone's pardon is some of this shit that I've heard it was contained. Now, Trump did return 15 boxes of papers in January, but not all of them. So once they went through cataloging what was missing, and they discovered that it was not with what he had turned over, he was asked to return the remainder. But the Donald being the Donald, he just fucking ignored them. Now, requests were made repeatedly after that point to get the papers. But Trump advisors assured the FBI and Justice Department and National Archives that nothing else was at Mar-a-Lago. Not once, but twice in June of this year. So the fucker and his stooges lied about keeping them, which is not at all surprising because once you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, you just pretend that you don't have chocolate chip goo around your mouth, right? Now, the latest spin on this that Trump has put out to kind of keep the donations rolling in, as he says it's a political power move by the left, and that the FBI agents involved went rogue, which is not at all surprising because he deflects responsibility for this and tries to spin it as work by the left like he does everything else. There would have to be so many people involved in the conspiracy that the FBI pulls off an unauthorized raid with a bullshit warrant that they push through with political allies to the left, that nobody at any point had a differing political affiliation or allegiance, that they said, hey, this sounds fishy. Like, you have to take a lot of steps to get a federal warrant issued to raid a compound of a former president. They don't just hand that shit out on a wing and a prayer because you come up with some grandiose hypothesis that maybe there's some sensitive data there. As I previously mentioned, 15 boxes of paperwork that he took that he shouldn't have, that he turned in back in January. 15 boxes. That's enough for them to say, hey, everything's not all here, and there's some documents and briefings and this and that and the other, and it's missing, and he and his cabinet members or his staff were the only ones that had access to this shit. So we should probably go down there and try to find out what the fuck is going on, and worst case scenario, we don't find any of it, and then we got to keep digging or searching like it's a fucking Where's Waldo book, and there's like 3 guys in striped shirts and various points of the picture, and you're like, hey, there you oh, maybe that's it, well, that one doesn't have glasses, and fucking found him. Really? Maybe they weren't even real FBI agents. Let's go with that theory, right? Maybe it's a bunch of guys that use like rubber panels and black electrical tape like in the 2006 Trailer Park Boys movie. Maybe that's what these FBI agents were doing. Wink, wink. These were just, individuals that took it upon themselves to go looking for very sensitive presidential and government paperwork in places where they thought that they knew what it would be, like Trump's personal office, and they just happen to know exactly the other points in the building at Mar-a-Lago where this might be. Yeah, this is all left-funded and Democrat-backed bullshit. This is all a conspiracy, right? As for that theory, President Biden has gone on record that he has no prior knowledge of the raid before it happened. But that could also just be due to his obvious Alzheimer's. So I'll give him that. I'll give Trump that one nugget that Biden saying, I didn't know this was going to happen. Could be that, Sleepy Joe just didn't take his meds that day. I will say it's like the least surprising aspect of this is that he would blame the left and say the FBI agents went rogue and this was all bullshit, especially with all of his little followers and acolytes who eat up every spoonful of bullshit that he dishes up with a smile on their face like a bunch of fucking feckless lapdogs. Are like, yeah, this is the left. There's no way Donald could have done anything wrong. It's just like the whole January 6th thing. He wasn't behind that. Those were crisis actors. That was Antifa. It's just like this out-of-touch, gold medal level of mental gymnastics to try to not admit that the Orange Emperor is not perfect, and he is actually, in fact, as most of us that are in touch with reality know, crooked as a motherfucker, and probably plan to hold these documents as a bargaining chip in case he's indicted for anything January 6th related, or God knows whatever else comes out the next few months, because the guy's slippery as shit. But I also wouldn't put it past this guy to want to sell whatever he had to his little man-crush Vladimir Putin to position himself to maintain political clout on the world stage. Or maybe just even for revenge, should he be tried and sentenced to prison for any number of totally believable schemes he's pulled over the past few years, like the real-world version of Dr. Evil that he is. I just could totally see him and like, hey, Vladdy, it's Donald. Just want to let you know. Got the papers. Got the nuclear secrets. Maybe some launch codes. We should play a round of golf. Maybe come to Mar-a-Lago. Maybe I come see you. I don't know. Let's do business. And then next thing you know, they're fucking teaming up, and Trump and his family are hopping on a private jet and escaping American airspace to go be repatriated as newly christened Russian citizens. In the past, he said he admires other world leaders who take out dissidents, who mock them or question their power. He's a totalitarianism-minded narcissist, and he cries like a little bitch when people say negative things about him, or absolutely true bad things about the way he's handled the election, COVID, talks about climate change regarding those forest fires out west 2 years ago. Anything where you say that Donald's fucking up to his face, he just tells you, you're a terrible person, we should take the press pass, you shouldn't be allowed to talk, I should be able to take you out back and shoot you and laugh about it, as if this was North Korea. Because, remember that time that he offered Kim Jong-un a fucking ride home on Air Force One? Does that seem like a good fucking idea? As we've seen Kim Jong-un portrayed not only in the media, but also in like movies and TV shows and shit. They don't just make that up. That little fat panda-looking fucker is a maniac. And he's like, hey, hop on Air Force One, let's go for a flight, I'll bring you home. Come on, Kimmy, we can be best pals. I'll let you play as Luigi on Mario Kart 8. So now I have to ask, for anyone who's still thinking anything positive about Donald J. Trump at this point, I just want to ask you one simple question. How the fuck do you defend this type of behavior and think this cocksucker's fit for the highest office in this nation? He does what he wants, when he wants, regardless of rules or laws, and then plays the backpedal card when he gets his hand slapped like some kid who was busted stealing cookies before dinner. And the guy's a crook and should be stripped of any ability to hold office of any kind from this point on for the safety of our nation. Like, when are you going to admit this? That's my question. When do you have your come to Jesus moment? Talk all the shit you want about Biden and his obvious dementia all you want, but I don't wake up in the morning nervous about what he's putting out on Twitter while I was in dreamland, because that shit doesn't happen. I don't worry that something he says on Fox News is going to make the air raid sirens near my house start going off due to perceived threats from unfriendly foreign governments. Also, he grabs pussies, hung with Epstein, ogled underage pageant contestants in various states of undress because he owned the place, and he probably fucked his own daughter at some point, if we're being honest. I wouldn't put it past him there either. The guy just makes my skin crawl. So do you fuckers honestly believe that this guy's getting the short end of the stick and is being framed here? Really? These are rogue FBI agents. This shit is not him just like, uh-oh, I got busted. Got to deny. Like, do you think this is all to misdirect attention away from the false flag January 6th investigation committee hearings? Can we just stop all this? Donald's a victim, stolen election, return of MAGA bullshit finally. Now that we know he does this level of allegedly illegal shit with reckless abandon for the safety of our nation. Because like I said, I don't trust him any further than I could throw him. Where were those papers going to end up? They were just going to be keepsakes until he died, and then they get passed down to one of his fucking progenies in the will? No, thank you. Just give it up. Your guy lost. He isn't going to win again because he's a world-class, history-makingly bad human being and doesn't deserve that kind of power again. Just stop believing that he's this messiah that's going to save America. He's not. He's a liar and a criminal. He should be indicted and going to jail for this whole classified documents ordeal or any other number of things that we haven't figured out yet or they're currently in the process of investigating and ironing out the details. And we will all watch his face drop as a nation collectively when the verdict is read on that day. There will be no get into a helicopter and watch him fly away moment like Nixon. Trump is fucked. He's going behind bars, and I, for one, cannot fucking wait. Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann. And that's the end.